Hi guys, I'm Jim from Sierra Vista, Arizona. Installing a hitch in your Toyota Sienna can take you to some really fun places like camping and bike riding. It can also tow a U-Haul trailer to just about anywhere in North America. Let's get to it. You'll need the tools seen here to complete this installation. Before we get started, let's go over a few key components of this hitch. This is your 2-inch locking receiver. This is your receiver housing that's going to attach to your cross tube. We're going to take our receiver housing and attach it to our locking 2-inch receiver. So to separate the two, we're going to push down, rotate clockwise, and separate. First step, we're going to install our receiver housing to the cross tube. Next, to install our included hardware, we're going to take the hardened steel washer, put it on our bolt. Next, we're going to install the bolt. Then we'll repeat on the second hole. Next, we will take our flange nut, screw it onto the bolt with the flat side facing the hitch. Now we'll repeat on the second bolt. Next, torque to manufacturer's specifications. You can find those in the link below. Now with our receiver housing installed, we can move on to the next step. Next, we're going to have to remove the tail lights. In order to do that, we need to open the lift gate. Next, on the driver's side, we're going to take out these two 10mm bolts. Next, we're going to remove the tail light by sliding it straight back. Let's just show you where the clips are behind here. You have one here and a body plug here. We have 3 wiring attachments. This one, here, and here. This one, we do a 1/4 turn counterclockwise and pull out. Next, we're going to push this tab and pull out. Next, we're going to remove this one. It's just a cap. Be careful when opening this. We're going to rotate this counterclockwise and then pull it out. There's a little tab on the top. We push that. Just push the tab down and pull the plug out. Now we're going to repeat that process on the passenger side. Next, we're going to remove these 2 bolts using a 10mm socket. Next, we'll repeat that process on the passenger side. Next, we have to remove 12 push pins, 2 on the driver's side, 8 across the back, and 1 in each wheel well. We have 2 10mm bolts, 1 on each side. We're going to remove them using a 10mm socket. As we were removing the fascia, we noticed there was 1 additional push pin in each wheel well. We're going to continue by using a plastic trim removal tool and work our way around the bumper to the passenger side. Using a second set of hands, we're going to unplug the parking assist harness. Now we're going to set this aside. Next, we're going to remove this panel on the driver's side. It has 3 bolts. We're going to use a 10mm socket to remove them. Next, we're going to remove the 2 rearmost plugs on each side using a flat blade screwdriver. Next, using a flathead screwdriver, we're going to remove the tape from the bumper beam. Just peel it back so you can get to the nuts inside. Repeat the same process on the opposite side. Next, we're going to remove the harness from the bumper beam. There's an attachment point on each side. Next, we're going to remove 3 nuts on each side using a 14mm socket. Be sure to set the nuts aside for later use. Now we're going to repeat that on the passenger side. Next, pull out on the bumper beam. This will not be reinstalled. So after the bumper beam removal, we'll have to remove this attachment point for this harness using a pair of needle nose pliers, pinch it together, pull down. Now we need to cut this tab, leaving the weld nut in place with a pair of 10 snips. We'll cut straight back, right along this line. And next we'll use a pair of needle nose pliers and bend this tab until it breaks off. Our hitch came with these end brackets already installed. However, we tried to install it and the hitch will not fit on, the cross tube will not go onto the vehicle without these being removed. So now we're going to have to remove these. We're going to remove both end brackets. I'll be using an 11/16 socket. Now I'm going to bring my hitch into place. We're going to be placing this where the existing bumper beam used to be. Be mindful that the carriage bolts are in place before you place the cross tube onto the vehicle. You'll notice that there won't be enough clearance if you try to put them in later. Next, we're going to secure the hitch to the vehicle using the nuts that originally held the bumper beam on, and we're just going to put those in hand tight. Next, we're going to install our end brackets. First, we're going to slide them over the carriage bolts. First, we place on our conical washer, being sure that the teeth are facing the hitch. And then we'll install our nut. Next, we'll install our second conical washer, again being sure that the teeth are facing towards the hitch. And then we will place the nut on. Next, we're going to take our included hardware and we're going to install them in these two holes. On each side of the vehicle, we have two different combinations. One is a bolt with a conical tooth washer. The other is a bolt with a locking washer and a flat washer. And the one with the locking washer and flat washer will be going in the front hole towards the front of the vehicle. And the next one with the conical tooth washer, this one will be installed towards the rear of the vehicle. Now we'll repeat that process on the other side of the vehicle. Now with all the hardware in place, we're going to tighten and torque everything down to manufacturer's specifications. You can find all of that information in the link below. We're going to start with these three nuts using a 14mm socket. Next, we'll tighten and torque the bolts going into the body using a 3/4 socket. Last, we'll tighten the carriage bolts using an 11/16 socket. Before we reinstall our fascia, some modifications will have to be made. We'll start by removing the kick sensor with these three screws, Phillips head. So I'm going to briefly explain the modification that needs to be done to this kick sensor, and it needs to be done because this fascia will be trimmed out for the hitch clearance. So what we're going to do is we are going to remove these clips right here holding the green and yellow wires in place, leaving these two sets here on this side. Then we're going to be trimming this off. These wires will come over to this side, and now the kick sensor will only work on one side of the vehicle. So we're going to start by removing these clips here by pushing in like that. As you see, it just fell. And we're going to continue doing this the rest of the way down. Next, we're going to remove these wires from these grooves by pushing in and setting them over to the side, just like that. Okay, next we're going to trim off this area using a pair of 10 snips. I went ahead and taped these wires down, being sure that I kept the distance apart, the gaps apart, and we will reattach it And then we will tape these wires down the same distance apart here. Keep in mind to let the customer know that the kick sensor will only work on the right side of the vehicle. The last modification we'll be making is to the fascia. We'll be cutting it with an air saw. We went ahead and marked where we'll be cutting. If you want those dimensions, they'll be in the link below. Now we're going to go ahead and clean this up with a file. Now with our modifications done, we're going to reinstall the fascia. Make sure you reconnect any wiring that was disconnected. Now we're going to reinstall these 10mm bolts. Repeat on the opposite side. As we're going to reinstall our underbody panel on the driver's side, we realized that we need to make a relief cut right here to get by the side bracket of the hitch. After that cut, now we're ready to reinstall the panel. I'm adding this push pin in to help hold the panel in place so I can get the screw in above it. Now we're ready to reinstall all of our push pins. And lastly, we'll install this 10mm on the driver's side. Now we're ready to reinstall our taillights. Now that we have the vehicle on level ground, let's get a very important measurement. The receiver is a 2-inch receiver, and from the ground to the top of the receiver tube is 12 7/8. This will help you determine the length, rise, and drop for your hitch accessories such as bike rack and cargo carrier. If you have any questions about the products seen in this video, or if you'd like to schedule an installation with a U-Haul hitch professional, visit us online today at uhaulhitches.com.